Welcome to The Bottom Line. I am your host, Maya Weinreb, and we're going to talk about all things money, taxes, accounting. You might even hear me talk about Doge today. Stay tuned.
Doge. There's some crazy Doge stuff happening right now.
Crazy.
So I have this clip I wanted to show you.
Yeah.
And that is that, so Elon Musk met with the president of Argentina, and his name is Javier Milei. And he gave him a chainsaw to signify cutting the waste.
Uh-huh.
And so this is the clip that went viral. And basically the media was saying that he's like unhinged and he's crazy.
Thank you. This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw.
Wow. Okay, well, first of all, he is unhinged, but I've had this conversation, not even just about him. Like, somebody called me crazy. And I was like, do you think that I've accomplished what I've accomplished if I was like a normal, well-adjusted, average person? And they were like, yeah, that's a good point. And I have not accomplished even 1/1,000,000th of what this guy has accomplished, Elon Musk. So I just feel like if we just only had like normal people who were not unhinged and were very like normal, average, not rocking the boat, we would never get anything done.
You mean like the Matrix?
Yeah.
Plugged into the Matrix?
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's just
you
the
pay
same.
taxes, you go to church.
Yeah.
All those things.
Exactly. Like, I just don't think that anything would change. And here's what's been happening. The US government tax deficit, it's been like up to 34 trillion last time I looked. And
I think it's 36.
It's insane. It's insane.
It's crazy.
So I don't know how you could combat that without crazy.
Well, okay, so this is like something new. I think this was announced yesterday or maybe the day before. So this was an executive order that Trump signed where he said that he was going to create the gold card.
I saw that.
You saw that?
Mm-hmm.
And so the goal is to get, I think it was 10 million immigrants who each pay $5 million.
Yeah, it costs $5 million. That's what I saw.
Right.
Okay.
And that would create, I think it was 1.2 trillion. I can't remember.
So, okay, I'm not like a political person, and I really don't love everything that Trump does. And I can see a lot of pros and cons on that. Like, okay, great. It'll 5 million is great for the American government, for the US tax deficit. Great. I see that. And maybe he's I'm trying to be like, okay, like what, maybe he's thinking like, okay, we're only going to get like, if you are a very successful person and you could pay for that and to circumvent the whole immigration process. Cause I'm an immigrant, so I get it. It took years and years and years and years and years and years to do it. So I sort of get it. But on the other hand, if I was a terrorist trying to get into the US, I'd be like, you only want 5 million
laying around.
You only want 5 million?
That's what exactly.
Like, but where's my, I need my money gun real quick. You only want 5 million? Here you go, Trump.
Here's the other side to that though. They were saying that it would be vetted. Like it's not like because you pay the 5 million, you instantly get the gold card. You also have to pass the background checks and everything else.
And that's what I would hope. And if that's the case, and they can guarantee that, if we really trust, the US security, right? If they could guarantee that it's not a terrorist, then fine. I see the pros. I just also see the cons. And
I mean, I agree. It's a little bit scary when you think about it.
Yeah. Like
it's unprecedented. It's never been done.
And again, if we kept doing what has been done, nothing will change. So I'm kind of like, okay, but here's what I think. I think that if they want to take $5 million to expedite the immigration process, as far as like still do all of the steps.
Yeah.
But they're going to do it. They're going to put you like a cut the line pass at Disney. Fine.
I think that's the idea.
As long as they still do all of the steps, because if they don't, and there's honestly, and it should be even bigger security for them, because there's people who have made it into the US who are criminals and terrorists who are probably now like, on a visa, green card, whatever. So it has to be even more careful. And I'm not like a big like trust the government person, but I hope that if they do it right, that it could help.
True. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And on that note, so speaking of Doge, the other thing I saw that was pretty wild, if I get the numbers right, I think I have them correct. It was 15,000 IRS agents were fired.
Wow.
And 120 offices were closed. This was all in the last like 10 days.
So I know people love to hate the IRS, and I get it because it's a pain in the ass. But I hope that somebody goes into the IRS and the IRS offices and like streamlines it and makes them actually efficient and effective. Because I don't know if you know this, but many forms that you need to send the IRS, not only do they not have an online portal like most companies do, you can't email it. You have to either physically mail it or fax it. Who the hell has a fax machine?
In 2025, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that I learned a few years ago. One of the only countries that actually uses fax on a regular basis, can you guess?
The US?
Japan.
Japan.
They still use faxes.
That's so cute.
So, but like other than that, I mean, maybe in like South America and Mexico and things like that. But in the US to be using fax, that's ridiculous.
Right. So that's my point. So the IRS is so behind the times and so inefficient and so complicated with all of their crap, right? But at the same time, when you call the IRS to try to get help, you're on hold for an hour before you get anyone. So I'm like, okay, so like, again, pros and cons. So he fired 15,000 people, you said? So obviously sucks for them. I'm sorry that they don't have a job, and I hope that they're able to find a good job. But is that going to make the IRS actually more efficient? And so somebody will answer the phone and help you? Are they going to make the kind of reforms that they need to make in order for it to be useful?
Well, the only way I could see that happening is what's happening in a lot of other industries, which is AI and robots like Amazon. The whole warehouse where they store things and they, pick orders, it's all becoming robots and
really?
AI.
Is that because everyone got upset because the Amazon workers had to like pee in a bottle in the warehouse?
I don't know, but I've seen the videos, they have like 300 or 400 robots and they're just like zooming by all over the place, picking up things and putting them in baskets. So in the same way, I think it is about time that the government gets automated in a lot of things and simplified. And that alone is going to save billions, if not trillions of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly thought when Doge said that they were going to cut waste and corruption, like, have you seen the those lists that have come out of the
crazy money they're spending?
Yeah, and like the
like condoms in third world countries.
Yeah, the
and
Air
sex
Force.
change.
Each cup is like thousands.
The bolts for the jets.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? So I thought they were going to kind of start with those, or like the amount of empty buildings in Washington, D.C. that are either owned and empty or rented and empty because the workers are still working from home. I thought they were going to start with those. I didn't think that they were going to start with like firing en masse, but I sort of understand because that is a top, like when any company, when you're looking at your profit and loss, a majority of it is in payroll.
Right.
So mine, depending on your profit margin and all that, but mine is like 60% payroll because I have a service-based company. So I could only imagine with the government, I mean, it's got to be a big line item. So it's an easy place to slash. And we all know, like, how many memes have you seen of like the DMV or like the government workers, like they don't have to do anything all day. They just sit there. Now, I'm sure that's not true of everyone. And there are people who are hard workers, and there are going to be people who are going to be slashed and shouldn't be. But I don't know how else. Like, how is he going to know the right people to slash in the limited amount of time that they have to do it? So there's going to be some injustice.
Well, that actually happened. I saw a clip today, actually, where he said that, oops, we had cut funding for Ebola virus prevention in some, I don't know where. And he was like, but we recognized it instantly and put it back. He's himself acknowledged there were going to be mistakes.
Yeah, there can't
it's
not
going to
be.
happen.
Like, if you're a new CEO coming into a giant company and your first order of business is to balance the budget, there are people that are going to be victims of that. There are programs that are going to be victims of that you're going to be, with the limited knowledge and time that you have, are going to be cutting. And then as it comes out, like you said, oh shit, we shouldn't have cut that. Then they're going to try to fix it.
Right.
Are there going to be people trying to politicize it and be like, oh, they cut this because, like, what was that one bill? Because they put transgender in it. So they decided to cut the entire disabilities bill. And it's like, well, that sucks. I hope they fix it. But I'm also not a politician and I haven't read the entire bill. So it's hard for me to have an opinion one way or the other.
Well, that's another thing that's just crazy. And not to get, like you said, all into politics, but, we should be able to have a 5-page bill and get and
Wouldn't
submit
that be
it
nice?
Instead of these 1,000-page bills that are just.
Yeah. You know what's crazy though? Even if I write a contract, like if I write a contract for between me and a contractor that I'm hiring, it's already 3 to 5 pages just to make sure that I have all the legalese in it that I need. So not to say it can't be done, but like when I first started my company, I was writing these like agreements that were 1 page long and I was like, yeah, this is good. And then it was kind of like, what about this? What about that? What about this? That says this, you need this, you need this. So now the NDA,
the
my
non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, is pages and pages long. So I'm sort of like, I kind of get it why the bills have to be so long. The thing that sucks is that they are so long. But you know what we should do?
Yeah, but single subject, like, okay, let's say you take one topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the bill becomes 25 pages. But these 1,000-page bills are 100 topics times 25, let's just say.
Why don't they just do one? Because then they can use that to hide things in there that we don't want.
Right.
It should be, like 25 pages. I feel like you're right. And we should be able to take the entire bill,
read it,
put it into Chat GPT and say, give me a summary of this bill and tell me all pertinent points having to do with, XYZ that I might want to know about.
Jeff Bezos, I saw this interview where he was, or maybe it was a public speaking event, but he basically said, we don't send out documents for people to read and then have a meeting to discuss it in corporate. He's like, we don't run the business that way.
Saw that.
He
said they have to read it in the meeting.
There, and then we discuss it.
It makes sense because people are busy and they don't read it. So like
Congress, they don't even read the fucking bills.
Of course not.
They just, somebody tells them. Yeah.
Yeah, they
somebody
get lobbied
tells them what's on it and then they vote yay or nay, right?
Yeah.
So imagine having to show up to Congress and read the bill.
They would mandate that it was 25 pages or less.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's crazy. And it sucks because there's people that are going to be really upset by what Elon's doing.
Yeah.
And what President Trump is doing. And I think it's going to be like the proof will be in the pudding.
Exactly.
What is the outcome?
And I saw something else this morning that was quite interesting because usually, the U.S. Census, it costs $40 billion and they hire all these people. They have to rent vans and all these expenses, right? It ends up costing $40 billion every 10 years. So what they're doing this time around is they're not hiring any of those people or having those expenses. They're going to use the postal office, the postal workers, to just do the census.
That's efficiency.
And they're like, this is going to save us $40 billion.
Because the postal workers are already going to your house.
They already go to your house. So a lot of those activities are going to be shifted over to the U.S. Postal Service, which is, whatever side you're on, you can't argue that that's not more efficient.
Especially if they give the U.S. Postal workers a raise.
Right.
Like if they're like, okay, we're giving you more responsibilities. So we're going to pay you $1 or $2 more an hour. And then we also want you to do these surveys. It would still save the US government so much money.
Right.
I agree. There's so much waste. Like, how could there not be? And here's the thing that I feel like the American people are not realizing. And maybe they realize and they just, don't like change or whatever. But if we're talking 36 trillion in debt, even if you put that down to billions or millions, if a company that couldn't pay it, right? 34, just say million in debt. If you're only making like what if you did it that way, what is the US making a year?
I don't even know what it is.
I don't remember, but it's not enough to pay that. If you're making 100 million a year and you're 34 million in debt, fine. But what if you're making 100 million a year and you're 34 billion in debt? Which I feel like is kind of an analogy of what we have going in the US. And don't sue me if my numbers are wrong and, ratios are wrong. But like, you would be bankrupt. You would be closing
Nobody would
the business.
lend you money.
Nobody would do business with you. You cannot afford to pay anybody.
Right.
So it's like, I get that everyone's upset about it, but what do you do if a company doesn't have money to pay all its employees? There's mass layoffs. There's other places where there's waste, and I'm sure there's lots of corruption because there's kickbacks. And why do those cups cost so much money for the Air Force? And why are we paying for condoms in the Middle East? I don't know, right? But like, there is going to be mass layoffs because the country cannot continue to do what it's doing.
Right. And like you said, payroll is one of the biggest expenses.
Biggest.
And that's the other thing. Some of these bureaucrats that are in office, they have incredible salaries, millions and millions. Even if you look at, wasn't his salary, but Fauci had I think a $10 million security, team or whatever, a year, $10 million. And the US taxpayers were paying for that.
Yeah.
$10 million for security.
Yeah.
That's
because
wild.
Technically, all of these government officials, they work for us.
Right.
Right. We're the ones funding them with our tax money. And that's why, like, if we go back to the IRS, like the IRS does have an important role. It is the income collecting arm of the US government.
Right.
Without the IRS, I don't know, maybe they would have to have a different agency, but like.
Well, on that note, what do you think about the External Revenue Service that Trump created?
Oh, to collect the tariffs?
Yeah.
I've seen so much back and forth on that. Like, some people are talking about how they think that the tariffs are going to be really great because they're going to level the playing field because so many things are so cheap to buy them from China that US
can't compete.
Yeah, the US producers can't compete, and there's about to be more people selling on Amazon from China than there is in the US. So from that point of view, I'm kind of like, okay, I get it. That's cool. That's, good for Americans. But then I also see there's that maybe like small businesses are complaining because they're getting their parts that they need really cheap from China. And now they're going to have to pay way more money because China's going to raise the prices because of the tariffs, or they're going to have to buy from the US, which is more expensive. And then that's going to trickle down to the US economy where everything is going to be more expensive. So I'm like, I see pros and cons. I don't really know. I haven't studied economy enough to know how it's going to shake out. But like, I think that he has, good intentions, and I think that he has good advisors and he's studied the situation more than I have. So I'm willing to see how it goes. Like, it's kind of like he's only president for 4 years. So if he's wrong, the next president can take it back, you know?
Not only that, he's only got the House and the Senate for 2 years, really, because, after everything that happened, like there was a wide margin. There was about a 20 seat difference. But by the end of the elections that went on for like 60 days afterwards, because they kept counting votes for like almost 60 or 90 days, there was a margin of like 1 or 2 seats.
Wow.
So it could very easily flip, which it normally does, right? Every 2 years, we have elections for Congress, and then it just changes. So
yeah,
he only has power really for 2 years.
Yeah. There you go. So, let's see what he can do, and let's see the results. Like, let's give him a minute. I know some people hate him, and I get it. I'm really I'm just not a fan of politicians in general.
Yeah.
But I have said, and I said on this podcast, like, if you let me go in and do an actual financial plan for the government, I would probably be assassinated. You know, I hope Elon has a $10 million security team, because it's true. Like, there is no way, like, you're gonna cut shit because you've got to
Well, we
come
talked,
up with a plan
do you
to
remember
go 36 trillion in debt.
on a previous episode, we talked about governmental budgeting versus
Yeah.
people and business budgeting. Like in a business, well, let's maybe not corporate, right? But when you're under budget, you save that money.
Yeah.
But in the government, when you're under budget, you have to find how to spend that money.
Yeah.
Right? So there is no mentality of, oh, we have savings. That's good. It's like, oh no, we have 10 million left over. And that's where the dishonesty starts happening.
True.
You start paying your relatives and sending money to overseas bank accounts, buying new cars for the office, you know?
Yeah.
And before you know it,
it's true. Well,
you're embezzling.
You know, the interesting thing is that I know, I totally agree. But it also trickles down into like tax planning, because think about it. You go, okay, so my company did really well and I saved my money. So I've got this money in the bank, and it's like, well, you better spend that or else the IRS is going to take a lot of it. And they're like, well, shit, what do I spend it on? So that trickles down to small businesses too, where it's like, okay, because the IRS taxes profit, they tax people for doing better.
Yeah, maybe small businesses. But like the government, I mean, that was another thing that came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
That almost all of the IRS and government officials are behind on paying their taxes. They haven't paid in years.
Really? That's fucked up.
So they're, you know, doing all these things. Like if you make more than $600, they know what you're doing. The banks have to report that.
And their hands aren't clean.
But they owe hundreds and thousands of dollars in taxes. They're not even paying taxes.
Because they're like, oh, well, the IRS isn't going to audit me because I'm a government official.
Yeah.
They should be auditing their own people first. Their people need to be clean.
Correct. So that's why it's like the whole concept of Doge is figure out what these guys are doing. And I think that's why they're pushing so hard to basically disable the IRS. I don't think you'll be able to close down the IRS because of the 16th Amendment. There is, you know,
and
you can tax on income, but the IRS as an entity for collecting that tax has proven itself to be inefficient and untrustworthy.
And maybe corrupt if they're not, you know, if they're not auditing government officials, then I feel like that's fucked up, because we have to pay taxes,
right,
and we have to pay, you know, and as a small business owner, it doesn't take a lot of profit to trigger you into really high tax brackets to where you're going. Like I said, okay, well, I guess I have to buy a heavy vehicle now so I can Section 179 this, because I'd rather buy a vehicle than pay it to the IRS, or like, you know, or I mean, there's some good things like, okay, what charity can I donate to? So I'd rather give it to charity than the IRS, you know, so it makes sense. But like at the same time, every company does have an income collection arm.
Right.
You can't not have someone in charge of collecting money.
Right.
So like whether it's the IRS or the External Revenue Service, or we could just make a brand new entity, I'd be fine with that too. Like it's not going to stop existing that we have to file paperwork and pay taxes to some degree or another. But sure, it doesn't, if they can change the name, they can change the people, but that function is still going to exist.
Final words. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen with this whole, I mean, I know it's hard to say because every day feels like something crazy or even crazier wild happens.
I'm seeing new memes every day.
Do you think the IRS is going to continue, or will it drastically change, or maybe even not exist anymore?
It's so hard to say because you see reels like this with Elon Musk with a chainsaw and President Trump selling citizenship for $5 million. And
did you see that crazy meme on the real Donald Trump channel
I don't know.
It was weird.
seen
I have
some-
to admit, it was weird.
The one where he said he was king?
It was this AI video of the Gaza, strip and all that. And
Oh, yeah. Where he wants to turn it into like the Riviera.
everybody was freaking out about that.
I did see that.
Anyway, back to.
Or did you hear about the $5,000 that Doge is supposedly paying everyone out?
I don't think that's a good idea.
I talked to someone who's like a fiduciary about it recently because I was like, come on, it's a PR stunt. Elon's like, everyone hates me. Let me pay them. And he was like, that's probably part of it. But what's happening in the economy is if you take all these people out of a job and the government is one of our biggest employers, it's going to affect the economy. So doing a nice little $5,000 stimulus will help the economy. And also, technically, it's our money.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay.
Yeah, I could see that.
Anyways, but it's hard to say because as far as will the IRS exist, because there's so many things happening every day that you're just like, whoa, whoa, nothing is the same. It's crazy every day. And I hope the results are good. Do I think that like President Trump is going to be able to get rid of taxation and just do his like sales tax thing that he's talking about? I don't think he will. I feel like, but maybe. I'm kind of, it's weird because I own a bookkeeping firm and I'm like, wow, what if there wasn't any more IRS or wasn't any more income tax? We would have to really pivot because a lot of what we do would change. And there's some companies now we have more than half the companies we do bookkeeping for need the bookkeeping for, management purposes. But probably some of the smaller companies we do bookkeeping for are really only doing it for tax purposes. So it would be definitely like a pivot and I would have to learn what is needed for this new tax system. Also, how long would it take them to implement? I would go to a whole bunch of classes and learn it be like, we got this.
Upending the whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
but like,
moral of the story is
be ready for anything.
Until you hear it officially, file and pay your taxes, right?
Yeah, because you could still go to jail. No, I'm just kidding. You don't go to jail.
You won't collect $200.
Yeah, you probably aren't going to go to jail, but you will accrue. I had one client that didn't owe taxes, but didn't file the tax return on time. And it was a partnership. And because they were 11 months late and never filed an extension, they owed $10,000 in late filing. And I was like, motherfucker. Yeah. That sucks.
That sucks.
They were able to get it abated and not have to pay it. But like, yeah, just because you hate the IRS and TikTok, I know you guys hate the IRS. I got it. Just because you hate the IRS and because you hate taxes, we all hate taxes. You still have to file and pay. And if anything changes, you'll hear about it. You won't hear about it from me first because I won't be the first to know, but you will hear about it. And until then, pay your taxes and file your taxes and do it on time. Pay your taxes. So that concludes this very feisty episode of The Bottom Line. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, please like, subscribe, follow, hit the button, do all the good stuff.